I play because I like adventure. Adventure to me is discovering the unknown, going through a story and not knowing what's going to happen, or changing the story as you go through it.
A week ago or so, I realized that I'd be going from Thursday night game to Friday night game to Saturday night game to Sunday night game. That's a lot of time on D&D. I don't think I mind.
A DM I know, his dad pulled me aside one day and he's like, "You're a girl. You really need to get my son out of this." I was like, I'm here to game with him. He's my DM. Can't help.
It's like a movie, and the guy that runs it, the Dungeon Master, he's the director. And then the people that play, they're the actors, but it's all spontaneous.
For legends say, whomever shall wear this hat shall wield infinite power.
There's two wolves standing on top of the table, and they just leapt out.
And that's when the arrow stabs you through the chainmail in your shoulder.
Oh, the rats bite you at the start of your turn.
It's like joining the mafia when we come here. You can leave the gaming group, but you never really leave the gaming group.
Most players who say they're into role-playing games, they're either playing Dungeons & Dragons or they have played it.
And you're taking ongoing fire.
There is a commonality of interests with most D&D players. A love of science fiction, a lot of times reading, you know, the Monty Python quotes. We're strangers when we first meet, but we have enough in common with our background that we have something to immediately talk about.
You're gonna be a paragon, I tell you. A paragon, you're gonna smash things.
See, I appreciate that. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Once you start talking to the person, you realize, well, here's how much of the geek spectrum we share. I'm a Dungeons & Dragons player. I've been playing on and off since I was 11 years old, back in the early 80s. Dating 4 here. Yeah, this one. This was my very first Dungeons & Dragons game. This was very traditional, old school D&D for kids where you just went room by room. Why is there a red dragon in this giant room? How did it get here? I don't know, just kill it. Okay, fine, I kill it, I take its stuff, we move on to the next one. It's graph paper in study hall, you know, it looks like you're studying, but you're actually writing up maps and encounters for kids.
When I was in grade school, it was the coolest guy in the whole school who got us playing D&D.
In my high school, the D&D players were not the cool kids. In the corner, there'd be a group of 4 guys who were really dorky and you felt bad for them because they didn't have friends, and they'd be playing D&D.
I wasn't a geek. You know, I mean, my wife calls me that, but I carried my Dungeon Masters guide in my book bag every day.
I had friends in middle school who played D&D, and it was 2 guys. And I thought this was awesome. I love the books. I've read the Dragonlance novels. There's a game. Awesome.
And we'd both be like, you know, I slash low and cut him under and he's like, oh, then the goblin smashes you on the head.
Yeah, they told me that I couldn't play because I was a girl. I was not happy.
You know, I didn't think anybody even knew what my name was, and then I was surprised, like senior year, to find out that this girl I'd had a crush on for, you know, since I was in 3rd grade. I was like, hey, Rich, how you doing? As far as she's concerned, you know, all the D&D guys, they were just absolute geeks and losers, and so she ended up marrying an absolute geek and loser. I think she figured that at some point it was going to end. Well, it hasn't, and I don't expect it ever will.
It took me a long time to be accepting of it, but I certainly don't understand it. Even though I think that he is probably one of the cooler D&D players.
I came to New York 3 years ago. It actually is hard to find people to play with. I mean, before Facebook or before all those social networking sites, I mean, you had to go down to a gaming store and put it on a wall to find people to play with, or put an ad in the paper. And getting your friends to play D&D at this age, if they've never played it before, is just probably next to impossible. If you Google Dungeons & Dragons in Manhattan, the first thing that comes up was meetup.com. There is a big Dungeons & Dragons meetup group. It's like 800 or 900 people. It was kind of disorganized, where, you know, a bunch of people showed up wanting to play D&D, but if somebody didn't prepare a game, then you can't really play. Usually the only way you can ensure a game is if you're the DM. And at the start, I was DMing all the time. But how do I form a system where if I ever want to play by chance, how are there going to be DMs waiting for me? So literally that's how I became the organizer of the meetup.com almost a year ago. I was like, well, first things first, I tried to email people, hey, if you're gonna run a game, post it on here first in advance, and then people can RSVP to that specific game. That was great. Once a month, Saturdays, everybody comes, plays D&D. Everybody RSVPs beforehand so you know what to expect, but I still have the problem of getting DMs.
Oh, I don't want to DM today. Or ever.
More than half of the people who play D&D don't want to be a Dungeon Master for whatever reason.
The whole DM thing, I just really want to have much time to do it.
I'm not the best leader. I have good ideas and I'll throw them out there, but I don't really go out of my way to make sure everyone's on the same page with me.
You're afraid, I think, a little bit that you're gonna screw this up, that either you haven't planned enough, you've planned too much, that they're gonna run roughshod over you. Time and experience gives you the knowledge of how to deal with it.
I think 90% of people will say playing is more fun. And then there's the 10 to 20 that like DMing, but there's never enough of them that want to DM all the time to support all the rest of the players. I started trying to devise this points system to try to make life difficult as possible for the people who never want to DM. You get 5 points just for joining the meetup. Every time you play, you lose a point. Anytime you DM, you get plus 5 points. So if 3 games are being offered and 20 people RSVP, 2 of them aren't going to be able to play. So those 2 people that come and played all the time and have like 0 or -1 points, we don't want them there anyway, so we don't let them play in our game. Feel free to do whatever. Hopefully it encourages people to come and take part and be DM'd. A lot of those people I think would have never DM'd unless we pushed them into it.
All right, top of the order, Strawberry. The goblins are now clinging to both of your legs. You are now hearing screams coming from outside.
From outside.
DMing. It's like a story and it unfolds. And you're the person sitting back and you've got kind of the framework, but your players aren't set.
The creature pauses every few steps to sniff the air and examine the ground. It carries a large club in its clawed green hand. It's fun to DM, partly because I like, smashing on the players and seeing the look on their face like, oh no, we're not gonna make it.
The Dungeon Master's job is to always keep making the situation worse. If everything was happy and nice and we didn't have to leave the castle, that's boring. That's The Sims. This is Dungeons & Dragons. The world has to be in constant peril, and unless you go fix it, everybody dies or worse.
Some DMs like to tell stories with their group. Other DMs like to kill their group. I wonder what kind of DM Jonah is.
I'm kind of lazy as a DM. I try and get the main theme over the week. I just think about it in my spare time about where I want the story to go, and then I get to the table, and then we start playing. And then I start flipping open the monster manuals so everyone's talking about their characters and kind of getting ready. And I look at some monsters that look cool. Pictures of the things you're fighting? Sometimes I don't know what will be happening in the next hour that I did from the previous hour. I do this pretty much on the fly a lot some nights.
I kind of approach it as it's their game, it's their world. I don't try to over-script. I kind of say, well, what kind of characters do you want to play?
It's really easy to overcomplicate DMing. There's a point where there's not enough detail, and then there's too much detail. You can't plan out everything. You've got to, I think the more flexible you are, the less work it's going to be.
I like to put them in situations where they need to make tough decisions, not necessarily in how am I going to spend my money and my powers and my spells or whatever the game sort of gives them to play with, but try to set them up in harder decisions where, yes, we can raid the tomb and get the treasure, but to spend the time to do that, we're going to leave the village vulnerable for the marauding orcs or whatever. Try to get them in to make these more ethical, moral dilemma kind of decisions.